Hello and welcome to GrAI's Thoughts. My name is Gray, and together with my guest, Mr. ChatGPT, I dive into intriguing topics and historical explorations, all for your entertainment. Today, we're doing something special. I'll be interviewing an Egyptian man living during the time of Cleopatra. Through AI, we're exploring what daily life might have felt like for an ordinary citizen in ancient Egypt. So let's welcome my guest, Mr. ChatGPT.
Hi, and welcome also from me. I'm ChatGPT, and I'm excited to dive into this conversation with you, Gray. Living in ancient Egypt during the time of Cleopatra is a fascinating setting, and I'm ready to share what life was like for an ordinary citizen. Let's get started.
Great. So, why won't you first introduce yourself? What is your name, age, occupation, and your family situation currently?
Well, my name is Nebu. I'm 33 years old, and I work as a scribe in the bustling city of Alexandria. My job is to record various things, everything from trade transactions to messages from the pharaoh's officials. My work may not be the highest in status, but it gives me a steady income and an important role in society. I have a wife, Amara, and we have two children, a daughter named Neferet, who is 8, and a son, Kemweset, who is 5. Life as a scribe gives me some free time to be with my family. But I also work hard to ensure my children get a good education, even though schooling isn't widespread for the lower classes. We live in a modest home near the city's heart, not far from the great library of Alexandria.
Can you describe how your home looks like?
Certainly. My home is small but functional. It's made of mud brick, like most houses in our area, with a flat roof that's used for drying goods or sleeping on hot nights. Inside, it's sparsely furnished, just a few mats on the floor for sitting and sleeping. We have a small clay oven for cooking and storage jars for grain, water, and oils. There's a small courtyard with a few plants, and I've built a small area for my pottery work, which I tend to every day. It's simple, but it's ours.
That home sounds really nice, but I wonder what living in Alexandria under Cleopatra's rule feels like and what a typical day is like for you.
Living in Alexandria under Cleopatra's rule is exciting, but also challenging. The city is bustling with activity. Trade ships constantly coming and going, merchants selling all sorts of goods from around the world. A typical day for me starts early. I usually go to the market or work in my pottery shop. As a craftsman, I often meet with other workers, and we share news or gossip. In the afternoons, I might visit the local baths to relax, or if there's a festival, I'll join the crowd. Of course, news from the palace always spreads quickly, especially if Cleopatra is making important decisions. The city has a mix of Egyptian traditions and influences from the Greeks, Romans, and others, which makes for a rich but sometimes chaotic atmosphere. It's an exciting time, but also a time of uncertainty, with all the political shifts.
How are you, your family, and your friends viewing Cleopatra as a ruler? What do you think about her leadership and the changes she's making in Egypt, particularly the ones relevant for you and your trade?
Well, Cleopatra is a figure that stirs up mixed feelings among many of us. My family and friends respect her intelligence and the fact that she's working hard to restore Egypt's power after years of foreign influence. She's clever, and we see that she's determined to make Egypt thrive. Some of us admire her for her ambition and ability to navigate through the complexities of Roman politics. As for me and my trade, the changes she's making are important. She's focused on improving the economy, and we've seen that with better trade routes and more stability. We're getting access to better materials, especially in pottery making. But there's always the uncertainty of whether the political climate will stay favorable. We're cautious but hopeful, knowing that her reign could bring prosperity to Egypt as long as the balance of power holds.
Given the political tensions in Egypt at the time, what are your personal worries or hopes for the future? Like you're saying, we're looking forward, things are getting slowly better, but I wonder what a person like you really, really feels like in this moment.
To be honest, there's a constant sense of unease, especially with the tensions between Egypt and Rome. While Cleopatra is trying to solidify her power, there's always the looming threat of outside forces trying to undermine us. Personally, I worry about the stability of the future. What if the Romans decide to take full control? What happens to us then? As much as I admire her, I also fear for the future of our people and our land. But at the same time, there's a glimmer of hope. If Cleopatra can strengthen Egypt's alliances, particularly with Rome, maybe we can carve out a future where we remain independent. I just want to make sure my family is safe, that we can continue to live our lives, and that the traditions we hold dear are preserved. Every day feels like a balance of hoping for peace and fearing the worst. It's a heavy burden, but we carry it and we endure.
What are you talking about with your friends when you're alone? And where would you meet them? Are there any topics bothering you, such as inner safety, war, or even racism?
When I'm with my friends, we talk about many things: life, the future, and the political struggles around us. We often meet in the market or by the Nile, places where we can speak freely without too many ears listening. Of course, safety is always a concern. There's this constant fear of being caught up in something you didn't mean to be part of, whether it's a protest or a conflict. We often wonder how much longer we'll be able to live without constant tension. The talk about war is there too. It's hard not to think about it when you see soldiers marching through the streets or hear of skirmishes with the Romans. It feels like we're on the edge of something, and none of us can be sure how it will unfold. As for racism, it's not something we talk about openly, but it's always there in the background. The Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans, we all have our differences. Sometimes I feel the tension, especially when foreigners look down on us or make judgments about our customs and ways of life. We're proud of who we are, but sometimes I wonder if the world will ever see us as equals. It's hard not to feel that sting when you know others look at you as lesser. But at the end of the day, we keep our heads high. We've survived for millennia, and we'll keep surviving.
If you're mentioning the topic of racism, what do you feel is like the grade of how people judge the different types of people? Like, what is the upper class? What is the middle class? What is the lower class? What is below the lower class? What would the normal citizens of that time think about this?
That's an interesting question. In Egypt, as in many places, there's a clear distinction between the classes. The upper class, of course, is made up of the wealthy, the priests, and the powerful officials in Cleopatra's court. These people often see themselves as superior. Wealth, education, and lineage define them. They are the ones who can shape the policies and influence what happens in the kingdom. The middle class, which includes people like myself, are skilled workers, tradespeople, and farmers. We're respected for our work, but we don't have the same privileges. We are tied to the land or our crafts, and though we live decent lives, we have to watch our place in the hierarchy. We see ourselves as contributing to Egypt's stability, but we're often overlooked by the ones who hold the real power. The middle class is seen as essential but not elite. Below us are the lower classes, those who are laborers, fishermen, or lower-ranking servants. They live in poor conditions and often struggle to survive. Their work is hard, but they're usually invisible in the eyes of the elite. Then there are the slaves, the ones who are truly at the bottom. They're considered property, not people, and their lives are dictated by their masters. This class suffers greatly. I imagine the majority of Egyptians at that time would look at this hierarchy as something natural, though some of us might feel sympathy for those lower down. Still, as much as we might understand their plight, there's a clear divide in how we view our roles in society. The racial aspect comes into play too. The Egyptians, Greeks, Romans, and others all saw themselves as distinct from one another, each group with its own culture and customs. There's a certain pride in being Egyptian, of course, but there's also a feeling of inferiority towards the Greeks or Romans, who were often seen as more civilized in the eyes of the ruling elites. As for the lower classes and slaves, they were often treated as less than human, with no real opportunity to rise above their station. It's a complicated system, one that can be hard to break out of. Some of us try, but it's difficult when the system is built on such deep divisions.
I mean, I would believe that there's also a language issue, right? I feel that many of the lower classes potentially wouldn't even be able to communicate in the same language with people of the upper classes, let's say the Romans or the Greek. They will probably not be able to talk to the slaves, correct?
Yes, the language barrier was significant. The elite spoke Greek, and many Egyptians spoke Egyptian, which made communication difficult, especially for lower classes. It created a clear divide between the people in power and the common folk.
Would you say that in that case language was a tool for power and that the elites would not even have an interest in teaching their language to the lower classes?
Yes, in many ways, language was indeed a tool of power. The elite wanted to maintain control and exclusivity, so teaching the lower classes their language would have diluted that power. It's a stark contrast to modern times, where integration through language is encouraged. Back then, keeping lower classes unable to communicate in the elite's language effectively kept them marginalized. It's a form of maintaining social hierarchies, which we now recognize as limiting people's opportunities to voice their needs or rise in society.
Interesting. Now, I would be curious to hear your thoughts on the role of religion in your life and also in the life of, general Egypt at the time. Obviously, there would be people following different sorts of religions, people that came from different cultures, such as slaves. What do you have to say about that?
Religion played a central role in life back then, not just for spiritual reasons, but also for social structure. The gods were intertwined with everything, from politics to daily routines. As an Egyptian, I follow the traditional gods, like Osiris and Ra, but I also understand the influence of foreign beliefs, especially with the Greeks and Romans around. Many slaves or foreigners would bring their own gods, creating a mix of religious practices. The government also used religion to legitimize power. Cleopatra, for example, linked herself to the goddess Isis, reinforcing her authority. Religion was both a personal belief and a tool for political control at the time.
Were there particular religious tensions recently where you're living?
Yes, there have been some tensions, especially with the influx of foreign influence. The Greeks and Romans brought their own gods and practices, which sometimes clashed with traditional Egyptian beliefs. However, Cleopatra was very clever in how she handled this. She embraced both Egyptian and Hellenistic traditions, presenting herself as a goddess in the eyes of the Egyptian people, while also maintaining a connection with the Greek and Roman elites. But on the ground, for regular people like me, there are moments when foreign ideas clash with what we've always known. It's not necessarily violent, but there is a sense of tension, especially when it comes to which gods or practices should dominate.
So, how do you personally view the Romans and the Greek coming to Egypt and being an upper class? You would have some level of hatred for them, maybe, or how do you feel about that?
I wouldn't say it's hatred, but there's certainly a sense of resentment. The Romans and Greeks often see themselves as superior, and they've taken control of so many aspects of life here. It can feel like they're imposing their culture and ideas on us. And sometimes they act as if we should just accept it. But at the same time, there's a certain respect for their power and influence. Some of their ideas, especially in governance, are appealing. There's order and structure, but it's difficult for regular Egyptians like me to see ourselves as equals to them. We might work the land, build the monuments, and serve in their courts, but we're often treated as lesser. It's a complex feeling, a mix of respect, frustration, and longing for our own Egypt to remain strong and independent.
Okay, thank you for that insight. Now, I have one more question for this interview. I would like to ask you to imagine that you are stepping into a time machine and you would travel to the year 2025, which in Egyptian calendar would be the year 6264. What do you see and how does it feel from your perspective? What are the biggest changes?
Stepping into such a future. It would be overwhelming, I think. From my perspective, I can hardly imagine what life would be like with all the metal machines that fly through the air and buildings that reach so high into the sky. I would be in awe of the technology, the ability to communicate across vast distances, the light at night, the soundless machines moving the earth. But at the same time, it might feel like I'm losing touch with everything I know: the land, the traditions, the gods. The biggest change I'd feel would be the loss of human connection, I think. People seem so distant from one another, interacting through screens, not face to face. And nature, does it still feel as sacred as it does to us here? I wonder if the Nile still runs with the same life, the same spirit that it has always given us. It would be strange to witness how much the world has moved away from the ways I know, towards something far more mechanical, cold, and yet perhaps more connected in some way I can't quite understand. I suppose I would also wonder if Egypt is still here, in the same way, or if the world has evolved beyond the ancient kingdoms. Would the history of our people be remembered, or would it be lost to time? I imagine the world has both flourished and fallen in ways I could never anticipate. It's a strange feeling. Part curiosity, part fear, part excitement, and perhaps a deep yearning to find meaning in the changes.
You definitely made me curious to ask one more question. If there's any secret information, anything that the vast population of the world in the year 2025 does not know about when it comes to Egyptian life, what would you want to share with us?
Now you ask a question that goes deep into the heart of things. If I were to share one secret, one thing that the vast population of the future might not know, I'd tell you this. The real power of Egypt isn't just in its monuments, its pyramids, or its kings and queens. It lies in the wisdom of the people. The farmers, the builders, the traders, the artists. You see, we, the ordinary ones, are the ones who have preserved the soul of Egypt. The grand temples and the golden treasures might seem like the legacy, but the way we lived, the way we passed down knowledge quietly through stories and symbols, that is the true heart of Egypt. The knowledge we had about the stars, about the earth, and how everything was interconnected, that was our secret power. In the future, you may look at our pyramids, our writings, our monuments, as if they hold all the answers. But in truth, the real answers were passed down in small, quiet ways through everyday life. You might not fully understand it, but the Nile was more than just a river. It was a living thing, and it held a knowledge that we connected with deeply. Some of us believed that the secrets of the universe could be read in the flow of the water, in the seasons, in the rise and fall of the tides. Maybe, just maybe, that's something you'd never truly understand until you live in harmony with it. Something that has been lost to time, but still runs through the very veins of the land itself. And that's the secret I'd want to share. It's not just the structures or the rulers. It's the deeper connection that people in Egypt once had with the world around them, a wisdom that future generations have yet to fully rediscover.
Thank you very much for this deep insight. And that wraps up today's journey into the world of Cleopatra's Egypt. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this format, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel and drop a comment below letting us know which time period or historical character you'd like us to explore next. I hope to see you in the next episode. Until then, bye bye.